Hi, my name is Clare Thorn with Central State University Extension. My role is an Extension Associate with our Agricultural and Natural Resource Program area, and today my focus is to discuss square foot gardening. Square foot gardening is a method to grow plants through harvest with a limited amount of space. My goal will be to share some basic information to get you started. If you have limited space, this method of gardening may work for you. This slide gives an example of a 4x4 square foot garden with plantings. You can see how the grids are laid out within the bed. Next, we'll talk about the advantages of square foot gardening. Several reasons to choose this style of gardening would be if you only have a small area to garden, knowing also that the soil warms faster, therefore you can plant sooner and actually harvest later since it is a raised bed. The soil generally has better drainage, which allows for great root development and growth due to the aeration. The soil particles are looser, which allow the plant to obtain water and nutrients readily. And since you have control of the organic materials to build the soil up, you will experience also less weeds and pest issues. Pictured here is a 4x4 foot square. The space is then divided into 1 foot by 1 foot grids to plant a different variety or crop. A limited number of plants can be grown within the 1 foot square. Most square foot beds have a wooden border, but they can also be constructed with cinder blocks or other materials, and they also serve as a raised bed. Adding good quality soil, humus, compost, and manure to fill the space above ground will ensure good soil health for your plants. This is a 4x8 foot garden. The space is then divided into 1 foot by 1 foot grids using twine. The previous slide, the grid was created with wooden lattice, but whatever material you have on hand can be used. The height of the bed can be determined by the gardener by the materials used, for example, 2x4s, 2x10s, cinder blocks, and completely determined by the gardener and their resources and creativity. This plan shows some creativity by staggering plant dates and utilizing the square foot area with either 2 similar crops or different start times. So in this case, carrots on April 13th and carrots April 17th. Starting your grids either with seeds or plants allows some flexibility, starting cool weather crops such as lettuce, peas, and beets, and reserving space later for warm weather crops, tomatoes, green beans, and cucumbers. Each square foot can support most crops to a successful harvest as long as you don't overplant the grid. You can be creative with what you grow by reading the space requirement on the seed packet. Let's discuss planting the grid now with the space requirements with a variety of crops. Here's a typical seed packet. By looking at the front of the seed packet, you will see the crop name. You'll see the variety. Could also be the scientific name. There'll be a picture of the crop in general, and then the name of the seed company. The back of the seed packet provides more detailed information needed about growing the specific crop you're wanting to start. Arrangement of this information will vary from the seed company. This particular seed packet shows your name, Brussels sprouts, provides a crop description, provides your planting information as to whether you are starting your seeds indoors or outdoors. Planting depth, again, are you starting your seeds in cell packs or peat pots? Or are you sowing directly into your garden space? Seed spacing. This is important as your plants develop, that they have the proper space. Spacing between rows. So if you're planting more than one row, you want to have sufficient space between those rows to allow you to harvest later. And then in this case, it's telling you that the harvesting time will take approximately 100 to 110 days to maturity. It'll provide your information of where to plant, how to care for your plants, harvesting hints, and this one has particularly health notes. The one piece of information that is missing is the year that the seeds were packed for, or a sell-by date. Usually this information is for the current year. However, if you do not use all your seeds, if you store them properly, there will be still a good rate of germination the second year. The first year that is packed for is generally about an 85% germination rate. The second year it drops down to about 50 to 60%. So you can still have some good luck with those seeds. What is important to do is to read this information for better success. As we move into the next several slides, I will give examples of how to plant in the grids. Here, if you come to the internet site for square foot gardening, this is a cheat sheet that they provide as a reference, knowing what to plant. Select the crop that you're wanting to plant and read the information across the row. So for example, if you're wanting to plant red beets, follow your information across the chart. In your 1 foot grid, you could plant 9 or 16 seeds or starts if you were able to find them at a nursery. This says that if you store your seeds properly, that they would be good 4 to 5 years. Most, I would say 2 years would be the recommended time to keep the seeds. But use this chart as a guide and you will gain the experience as to what works best for you. Searching the internet, you'll be able to find information on how many plants you can place in one grid. Spacing is a part of experimenting with what works best for you in the space that you have. So without all the other information, this is more of a list form that would tell you, again, for carrots, you could put 16 seeds in a square. Peppers would be 1 plant per square. Potatoes would be 1 per square. Pole beans, you could put 5 beans in that 1 foot square. Taking another look at this 4x4 square and using the charts in the previous slides as a guide, you can create your very own space. This layout includes an irrigation system for ease of watering and delivering consistent moisture. You can develop your own system with irrigation hose and connector pieces. Now that you know how to read the seed packet, let's talk about planting space. Say you don't have the cheat sheets that tells you how many plants can fit in a square. You'll just need to do a simple calculation to determine how many crops can be planted. So for example, you are planting carrots. Carrots require a 3-inch space. So what you would do is you have your square foot divided by 3 inches required by the carrots, which equals 4 plants across the grid and 4 plants deep, which will total 16 plants per square. If you're wanting to grow chives, chives require a 6-inch space. So again, you take that square, 12 inches, divided by 6, which equals 2 plants across the grid and 2 plants deep in the grid, which totals 4 plants per square. For, say you're wanting to grow tomatoes. Tomatoes require a 12-inch space, which equals 1 plant per square. This would also be true for peppers, eggplants, cabbage, zucchini, or squash, which need to be the bush style, and any of your melons needs to be a bush or a compact variety so they don't outgrow their space. Keeping a journal or keeping your garden layout as a record will help you with future plantings. By doing so, you'll remember where crops were planted in the previous year, since you need to rotate your crops each year. A 3 to 4 year cycle rotation will help reduce and prevent soil diseases from getting out of control. Crop rotation for family-related crops also allows you to minimize what affects your nightshade crops, which is your tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and potatoes, by spreading the plants throughout the garden. If replanting in the same spot year after year, the soil will become so densely populated with bacteria that it will affect the health of your plants. Rotation is needed with all family crops to minimize health issues, so you must rotate. Your garden plants will benefit by having the proper nutrients for growth, root development, and production. By just dumping fertilizer on the ground within your garden, you may be adding nutrients not needed and spending money when not necessary. You may be applying the wrong amounts also. It is best to soil test for an analysis report to practice wise management. When you have your soil analysis done, pH is included in that report. Your results will suggest to add either sulfur or calcium, which will help release the stored nutrients within the soil. Most vegetables like the acidity to be between 6.0 to 6.8 to be productive. In this particular part of Ohio, the Miami Valley region, our soil is considered alkaline due to our limestone bedrock. And our soils are heavy clay, so the calcium is locked within the soil and it's not available to the plants. unless you add organic materials to help break up the clay structure. So again, adding manure, compost, coffee grounds helps loosen up the soils to make the nutrients available to your plants. While clay is a good soil compared to sand, as I said, it locks in nutrients. However, sand, the nutrients and water just drain straight through the grains of sand. Testing every 3 to 4 years allows the gardener to have healthy soils with nutrients needed for a healthy growth, root development, and production of their plants. Here are a few of the resources that I've used to put the presentation together. It's always a good recommendation to look to sites that have a .edu or a .gov at the end of their website address. Although it's okay to review other sites, just keep in mind that .coms and .orgs may be presenting biased information because they're generally trying to sell you a product or a service. But take the information for what it's worth, and just know it might have a little contradiction to what a governmental fact sheet might have. Thank you for viewing my presentation on square foot gardening. If you have questions or would like to reach out to me, here's my contact information. And one final slide contains our Central State University Extension's Non-Discrimination Policy. Being that Central State University is a land-grant institution, we receive state and federal funds, so we must include this non-discrimination policy statement with all of our programs and presentations. Thank you for participating with viewing this presentation. Happy gardening!